Hello everyone, welcome again to another home buyers and sellers series video. I do have a great guest again, Jeff Kahane with Kahane Law, and today we'll be talking about what mistakes do sellers make when they sell their homes. So, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say one thing, but if I was going to make it like just a broad category, your representations and warranties. And it's conveniently located in one fancy section in the contract where it has your representations and warranties set out. So read them. It's really, really important for you to read them. And I know when you get it electronically and you just click, like it's hard to get your head around the reading it part. And I'm the worst, if I get a contract for renting a car, like, yeah, whatever. But it's really important. And let's go over a couple of things that we see problems for. If you're not Canadian resident for tax purposes, like you need to identify that really early on, and before you even sell the property, talk to your accountant, get that process going for the clearance certificate.
That can be a big one.
Absolutely. Like we see problems with this all the time where we just had 3 last week where didn't close. The sellers will probably get sued because they weren't in a position to close, and it's a big problem. It's a 25% withholding tax if it's a principal resident, 50% if it's a rental property, and that's not of the net proceeds, that's of the sale price. So it's a lot of money that gets tied up, and the whole thing can go to fall apart.
Right, yeah. Exactly right. I was actually working on a deal last year that was having foreign not resident sellers, right? And your guys did a phenomenal job from the office.
Yeah, well, we'll do what we can, but we need the accountants. Like they're the ones who do that application, so we need to get them involved as soon as we can.
Excellent.
Other representations and warranties, look what's on title. So if you have a restrictive covenant on title, make sure that the house complies with it, so that that you're able to say that, yeah, it says you can only have a shake roof, and we have shingles. And it's not so much a problem if there's something wrong, because then you can put it into the contract where the buyer accepts it. That we can address those kinds of things. Correct. It's when it comes up last minute where there's issues. That's where people end up getting sued or deals falling apart, whatever. Right. You want to look at your real property report. If you don't have one or if it's not up to date, order one right away. Like that's not something you want to mess with, because a buyer has so much protection under it. You want to make sure there's no encroachments. You want to make sure that there are all the structures are shown. And even if it was okay when you bought the property, it may not be okay now, because the surveyor's rules change. The contract that real estate agents use changed in 2016. So things that were not enforced then are enforced now. So things like the distance between a lane and the garage, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that all those representations and warranties you can make. Any kind of basement developments, that there were permits for them. That's another big one that comes up frequently.
Permits. I've seen permit issues all the time. At least half of my transactions did have some issue with the permits.
Well, we could do a whole episode.
Oh yeah, it's either a garage or a basement or garage heater. We can do a whole episode about those for sure.
And my worst one we're dealing with, it's 3 years in the making. People took possession of a home they bought from a self-builder, like they hired their own contractors. Zero permits. So their real estate agent said, oh yeah, we'll get title insurance instead of a real property report.
Okay.
And the reason they couldn't get a real property report was because there were no permits. The MD wasn't going to stamp it at all. And so we're 3 years later and they're still fighting. The title insurance company is repairing some stuff, but it's a long process. So you want to, as a seller, you want to make sure that you can honestly say all those representations and warranties are true. Material latent defects. This is like a really important one. And it's confusing because there's several definitions of what those are.
Right.
So the Real Estate Council of Alberta defines it one way, and these are like really serious problems. So, the house is not fit for habitation. There's so much mold or mouse poop or, whatever in the property, you can't live there. In those situations, you have to disclose. And if a client says, don't disclose it, then you're saying, I'm not selling your property for you. Like it's an absolute, real estate agent is not allowed to list a property where there's a material latent defect as defined under the RECA rules. The contract defines it differently. And this is where there's a couple of definitions, because the old contract used before 2016 didn't have a definition, so the courts defined it. But now we do have one, and it's really quite open. It's, if you read it, it's anything that could affect the use or value of a home, which is pretty broad, like in terms of value of a home. So the rule of Jeff, if you really are concerned and you don't want to get sued, disclose it. If you think that, I fixed something, so it's not going to matter, well, if it's not going to matter, disclose it, and then you're safe. If you want to take a chance and it's not the RECA really scary kind of defect, then that's okay. It's your choice. Everyone's going to make sure you have that in writing. But it is required to be disclosed, and not just an email or a text or a chat about it. It has to be in writing in the contract. That's really important, and we see that messed up all the time.
Right.
Or, well, it was in the listing. Well, who cares?
Exactly. Exactly right.
There was a different purchase price in the listing. So you just want to make sure that you have all of those things addressed.
But from another hand, there are some situations when those issues don't need to be disclosed, and this is when they actually get remediated, right?
Right. So if something is properly remediated and you have faith that it's properly remediated and choose not to disclose, it's fine as long as it's actually properly remediated. So let's say there's a leak in the basement and you had someone come in and they fixed the outside, fixed the inside, did all the things, and you're sure it's fixed properly. As long as it's fixed properly, there won't be an issue.
Yeah.
But if it leaks down the road, and as soon as you open the wall, they're going to see, they did work here and they didn't disclose it, then you run into problems. So, everyone's got a different degree of risk adverseness, of how comfortable they are with things. And so, if you're risk adverse, you can say, you know what, we're going to provide all the documentation. We're going to show this is what the problem was. This is all the repairs that were done to remediate it. They can have faith in it. Look, there's warranty for another 10 years or whatever. Right. Will that affect the value or a buyer? I don't know, because that's not part of what we do. But in terms of risk mitigation, that's the best way of doing it. You could say, I don't even want to raise it up, which is fine as long as there's not a problem down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, make sure you can sell. So sellers, it is so important that that you can give title to the property before or on the possession day. So what does that mean? If you have a mortgage on the property and you don't have enough money from the sale proceeds, that you have that money somewhere else. If you've been sued and there's a writ against the property or something for the CRA or a CLP, which means that someone has sued you but they haven't won yet, or you're going through a divorce or any of those things. Dower issues are a huge thing. So if you don't, if you're married, one person on title, and neither person has lived in the property since the time of the marriage, then you have to be able to have the dower rights waived 3 times. Once for the listing, once for the contract, and once for the actual transfer at our law firm. If you are dealing with an estate, that's another situation where people can't give title because the probate hasn't gone through. So like probate estates, we've talked about non-residents, make sure you can convey title that way. If it's a corporate entity, that the right people from the corporation can sell. So we just want to make sure that you have the ability to give title to the property. It's really, really important.
Yeah. So make sure you get the proper representation. Get your real estate agent to review the documents. I always do it. I'll be happy to do it for you. And always get your lawyer to do the same thing for you.
That's what we're there for. I mean, any lawyer should be there to answer your questions. And if you can't get a hold of them or can't reach them, they're probably not the right match for you. And I always tell people, when you're picking a real estate lawyer, there's 3 things you want to pay attention to. How long it takes them to get back to you. Because if you're like dealing with a problem on a file, you probably want to talk to them pretty quickly. If it takes them 3 days to get back to you with a quote for fees, which is probably should be their fastest turnaround time because they're trying to give you, person's giving you work, you have to decide if that's right for you or not.
Exactly.
All-inclusive prices. You want to make sure that you know what you're paying in advance. You're not going to get hit with all kinds of disbursements or other charges or things like that. And, I always say it's good to have someone who's not a dabbler. I think in order to be really good at something, you have to do it a lot. I don't think I'd go to an eye surgeon who also does fixes legs and this and that, the other thing. I want someone that this is what they do every day, so they're good at it. So
exactly.
Those are my little tips on picking your real estate lawyer.
Exactly. And the Jeff is your guy.
Go on. Thank you. I love it. I really enjoy what I do. And my life before law was a grade 4 teacher. So, helping to explain things like this, or, even when we're in the boardroom going through documents, I really enjoy making sure that people understand as much as they want to.
Exactly. Well, Jeff, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for giving all of these great advices to our clients and sellers. Again, if you do have any question, please don't hesitate, comment below the video, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.